Math 3, still in Unit 1, Lesson 3, so practice 1.3.1, identifying surveys, experiments, and observational studies. So, for problems 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3, identify whether the method of study described is a sample survey, experiment, or observational study. Explain your reasoning. So, a weight loss program is purchased by 25,000 people. The company registers all 25,000 people in a database, recording each person's starting weight. After 8 weeks, the company checks in with 5,000 of the customers selected at random to record the new weights of these customers to determine their weight loss progress. So, is that a sample survey, an experiment, or an observational study? So remember, an observational study, you're just basically watching and recording what's happening, okay? And you're usually observing as many as you can. Whereas an experiment, you're trying to determine what affects something else. So you're inserting yourself and making changes and trying to do something to affect the behavior. A sample survey is simply just doing a small version of the whole population, surveying them, asking them questions, that kind of stuff. Now, the key to number 1 here is noticing that they have all these people, yet they're only going to sample a few of them, okay? So they're only surveying and asking about the new weights, so that would make it a sample survey, because they're asking a question and they're only asking a question of some of them. Alright, number 2. A company is conducting market research on a new cleaning product by providing free samples to 2 groups of people. The samples given to one group are at full strength, and the samples given to the other group are diluted with water. The company then gathers data from each group on product satisfaction and effectiveness. Okay, so they're not asking people questions. They are looking and seeing what happens. Now, are they just observing? No, they're actually getting in and trying to make a difference by, giving groups different things. So this would be an experiment. Now, number 3, a study of 200 college-age cigarette smokers found that the participants were able to walk on a treadmill set with a steep incline for an average of 0.6 miles before the participants became short of breath. So here, different than the other 2, is our observational study, because they're just watching. Okay, they're just observing. They're not trying to affect anything there. Okay. For problems 4 through 9, identify which method of study could be used to best accomplish the results sought in each scenario. Alright, so this one we're trying to decide which of those 3 is the best. So membership at the local library continues to decrease. What kind of study should the library conduct in order to increase library membership? Alright, so let's think. We've got the 3 ideas, right? A survey, an experiment, or an observational study. Okay, so what would we be looking for here? Okay, so the membership is continuing to decrease. We could observe that, but would we be able to... We're trying to change it, not just view it. Okay, so if we're trying to change something, usually the best idea is to go with an experiment, right? We want to increase. Okay, so we could do an experiment and try to offer some things to see if that helps bring up library membership. Maybe some incentives, things like that. I think another useful one for this might be a survey. What would make people find out those that used to have their membership in the library, see if you can get them to answer some survey questions about why they stopped going to the library. Or maybe current ones, what would cause them to stay with the library as opposed to leaving it. So either one of those would be good. Okay, number 5, the birth rate in first world countries is decreasing. The government of one country in particular is anticipating negative effects on the economy if the population is reduced. This country's government needs a better understanding of why people are having fewer children. What kind of study would help the government understand this trend? Alright, so for this one, looking at it, they're trying to understand why they're having fewer children, okay, of why people are choosing. So it's dealing with people. You're not really going to want to use an experiment here, okay, Observing you could try, but you really want to understand why people are having fewer. So a survey would be the best, and it would be a sample survey because obviously you're not going to be able to ask every single person in the country. Okay, so a sample survey of trying to figure out why people are having fewer children. You may combine it with some observation, but I think a survey here would be your best option. All right, number 6, what kind of study should a teacher conduct in order to improve student grades? Well, that's interesting. Okay, for this one, let's go through an experiment. Could we do an experiment? Okay, could we, as a teacher, we have multiple classes. I could change what I do, how I teach, how assignments are given, what kind of assignments are given. You know, I could change a lot and experiment with that, so I think an experiment would work. Okay, if you think of it that way. Okay, what about a survey? Would it be useful to ask students, you know, what would help them improve their grades, or maybe what is making it hard for their grades to improve? So I think a survey would be useful too. What about an observation? Could we look at other teachers that maybe their students' grades are better overall? We could observe what they do differently, or we could observe the better student, you know, what students are getting better grades and why. So I think a combination of all three of these would honestly work for number 6. So number 7, the owner of a coffee shop is considering installing a drive-through window, but wants to know the possible effect on parking for current customers. What kind of study might the shop owner conduct to understand the parking patterns of current customers? Okay, could we do an experiment? We could try, but if you're going to install a drive-through window as an experiment, that's a lot of money if it doesn't work out. So I'd say probably not an experiment for number 7 because of that. Could we ask people, do a survey? Yeah, you could probably do a survey, but I don't know if it's something people would pay that much attention to. I mean, I suppose, you know, a survey to see who would like a drive-through window would be a good way to go, but for how it's going to affect parking for customers might not be the best. So probably an observation would be our best here, to view maybe how parking is handled now, and to kind of be able to observe what impact that parking lane would probably have. And by looking at that information, seeing how they park now, would help inform you of how that might change. Okay, number 8. The owner of the coffee shop would also like to better compete against popular energy and alertness drinks on the market. He would like to create an ad campaign that includes the length of time a small cup of his shop's regular coffee will help customers stay awake and alert. What kind of study might he conduct to find out how long customers on average can count on staying awake after consuming a small cup of his shop's coffee? Okay. Well, an experiment. Could he try to do an experiment? I suppose he could. You know, an experiment would probably give you the best information, but I don't know if the owner of a coffee shop would be able to really do the experiment the right way. Being able to take control of what people are eating, and, you know, you'd have to take control of too many variables here to really do a good experiment. So that's probably not the best, being that he's just the owner of a coffee shop. Now, if you're in a university and you're studying the effects of different caffeinated drinks, then I think you could do that. You could control that much better. Okay, so experiments out. How about a survey? Survey, you could ask people, you know, to judge how long they stay awake based off his coffee. You know, so a survey would work because that would probably be pretty easy to get people to respond to. You may not get all of them, so most likely it'd be a sample survey. Okay, what about an observation? An observation would be good. The problem is here that are you going to be able to continually observe all your customers? And so we probably wouldn't be able to do that one either, like the experiment. So a survey would probably be your most economical and easiest to conduct. Number 9, a group of biology students would like to know how the type of light that sunflowers are exposed to impacts the growth of the flowers over time. The students want to explore the effects of natural light, ultraviolet light, and fluorescent light. What kind of study might the students conduct to find out how the type of light impacts the growth of the sunflowers? Well, here it should be pretty easy to see that they're going to have to control some things, and they're doing multiple aspects of it, so an experiment would be our best bet to be able to actually look. A survey, flowers won't be able to answer a question. An observation you could try, but you would have to control what type of light. And so because you're inserting yourself, an observation really doesn't work, which is why we go and experiment, because we're controlling things. And we've got to remember that. All right, question 10. A farmer would like to compare two brands of seeds that both claim to yield more crops. Design a study that she might conduct to test the claims of both brands. Okay. Well, I think a good idea would maybe be an experiment. Again, you could, in your field, split it up so it has similar soil, similar lighting, similar. You would want to make sure that everything else is the same except the seeds. Plant one brand here, the second brand here, give them the same water, the same fertilizer, everything else would have to be the same. And then you could see which one would be better. And it'd have to be the same amount of space, the same amount of seeds. Everything would have to be the same. And that's what is important with an experiment. Everything would have to be the same except which brand of seed you did. Okay? So that would be the best. Could you observe it? You could try going, but the problem is if you're not controlling other aspects, maybe one area they used one brand and another farmer used the other brand, but he waters more than this one, that's going to impact it. So it's not just the seeds. So you can't really do an observation because you need to control things, and a survey wouldn't make sense. So an experiment and doing it in this manner would be the best way to go.